Hello and welcome to the City of San Antonio. I'm Mayor Ron Nirenberg and I am excited to have you here in our city for the City of the Future Conference. We want to thank our partners CPS Energy for hosting us and also acknowledge all the wonderful dynamic speakers that will have national and international leaders on the Smart City movement. We get to show off the 7th largest city in the United States here and the work that we're doing collaboratively on our own Smart City vision, which is driving global innovation. I also want to acknowledge the great work of our local teams, including our very own Office of Innovation, which you'll be hearing from over the next two days. Thank you so much for taking time out, and we look forward to the outcomes of a great City of the Future conference.
Our mayor, thank you. We can give him a hand. Again, he's out there doing some hard stuff, trying to attract more businesses and more people to the conversation of what it takes to keep growing a thriving community that has a heart for all our citizens. What I do have for you, though, in person today is my good friend and city manager who's had his hands and his shoulders weighed, but he is doing awesome. He is going to join me for the City of Future next conversation about where we're heading as a partnership. Please. Erik Walsh. Okay, so I talked about a little bit about this partnership. And Erik, you have been at the helm for how long now?
Almost a year.
Almost a year. When's your anniversary?
March 1st.
All right, let's give him a pre-happy anniversary.
It's gone by fast.
And look how fresh he looks.
I was half expecting the piano over here on the stairs.
Next year.
Yeah, okay.
Next year when we do it. So ultimately, Erik's team and my team, and also we have other partners in the municipal arena, try to work together to focus on smart cities. Sometimes our everyday stuff gets in the way, but it is one of the priorities that we are going to be stepping up again. So can you talk to the group here about how you see our partnership and what are you excited about where we're headed?
Thanks, Paula. Good morning, everyone. So, and you've heard some of these pieces with Jonathan earlier and with Paula's conversation. Working together, a lot of common themes. Recognizing that, at least here locally, we all have the same customers, essentially, right? And ensuring that we're making that connection to the community. You heard Jonathan talk a little bit about that this morning. Making it community-driven and including the community are keys to a lot of the things that we just saw in the video and some of the things that you'll hear over the next day and a half.
So, Erik, last year I was able to interview his predecessor, Shirl, and Erik was already too busy. He was already running on a lot of things. So when you came in, I mean, you, of course, were already involved, but now you're running things, so to speak, and working with the city council. I'm throwing these at him, so don't think he's prepared for this. So talk about, though, the city in itself is looking at innovation. You have a committee at the council level that's looking at innovation and technology, and they're kind of overseeing some of the things that we're trying to do. So what is that dynamic?
So is Councilman Pelias here? I thought he was on his way.
I don't hear
so
him, though.
Councilman Manny Pelias is the chair of the Council Committee on Innovation and Technology, and that's really the group of council members that we work through to float ideas, bring in partners. It becomes kind of our opportunity to talk to 4 council members without having it on the council agenda, in a big action item, but it's really kind of the work where we get feedback from council members. We have 2 individuals that aren't on the council that are on that committee from outside the city that give us input, and it becomes kind of our testing ground for ideas.
Yes.
And it's critical because, a city as large as we have, with as many things that we have responsibility over, it's important to have that group within our structure to kind of just talk about ideas like noises or sounds in a trash can, for example.
Yeah.
You don't want to put that on the agenda unless
I
it's ready
won't.
to go.
I do know that I have to be really careful. So before I mention anything to the councilman, I'm going to talk to Erik first. That's partnership. So we have, if you look at all of San Antonio, we could, I mean, we have, CPS Energy serves about a footprint inside the city limits of about 1.5 people and 1.9 when you look at, we have about 30 other incorporated cities. We have covered all of Bexar County, and we touch 7 other locations. One of the challenges that we have is, how do you start something? How do you pilot? How do you take it to scale? Can you take everything and take it to scale? And I think as we talked, as the CEOs of the organizations that are partnered on the municipal side, we said, well, no, we got to be a little bit more lasered. We've got to put things in certain areas of our community where we can really study them and think also about getting feedback from the area. So the city, CPS Energy, water company, transportation company, I think we had the county involved.
River Authority.
We all got together and we picked 3 innovation zones. And in general, they all have a little bit different characteristic. We have the downtown area here, which is another councilman, that's
Councilman Trevino.
Trevino. We also have the medical center, which is
Councilman Plies.
and then we have Brooks City Base, which brings in a lot of international businesses, and that is
Councilwoman Villagrán.
So we did that deliberately. Erik, you can talk a little bit more, like, what are the characteristics between, just in general, that you understand leading the city of those 3 regions and how different they are, what they tend to focus on?
Well, very different, right? They were picked for different reasons. And what we want to do through these innovation zones is look at different areas. We don't want to pick 3 areas in the city that all look alike or have the same characteristics. And here a couple weeks ago, we had our first digital sandbox effort led by our team down in the Brooks area. And in a couple of weeks, we've got another planned effort downtown, and it's really meant to solicit that community feedback and engagement before we solution build. But very different. And I think that probably when we look down the road, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road, as we prioritize infrastructure improvement and potentially maybe CPS infrastructure on your end, we'll have the data from these innovation zones to maybe do something a step ahead. Everybody's going to want an innovation zone. But I think, let me also mention that there are 13 regional areas that the city's been working on through our master plan. And the idea behind these 13 regional areas is that they become focal points for jobs, education, transportation, investment, potentially economic development. And then you've got the buffer zones around. And the 13 zones are the 13 zones that all of you from San Antonio probably intuitively know. It's the UTSA area, it's the airport, 410, it's Brooks, it's the downtown, it's the near west side. And I can see, as we develop these innovation zones, we're laying the groundwork for potential investment and thought in those other areas as well.
And if I could add, I mean, again, I rely on Erik more to talk to me about the broader services beyond energy. But in general, we were talking about how different these 3 areas are. And we initially brainstormed, for example, that we thought the Brooks area, again, this area is very, very interesting. It is a privatized base run by one of our city leaders, Leo Gomez. He's doing a fabulous job, but he's attracted so much business from around the globe. And you'll find companies from Japan or South Korea or Europe and growing in that area. But it's an older, San Antonio is 300 years old, and we thought about flooding as a potential place of putting technology to help people. We thought downtown would be lighting and this whole experience thing, which I'm sure Matt is very excited that we do. And then we thought in the medical center, which is one of the biggest employment areas, we thought traffic control would be one of the biggest things. That said, working with Erik, how they're doing their outreach, of which we support, it doesn't have to be those things. That's just our view. The citizens are going to be able to tell us what do they want to do first and where do they want to go. And so I know that you've done that, and you've done a lot of different things in terms of outreach to try to get people to start thinking about input. Not easy, but what are the revelations in trying to get people's input?
Well, we just wrapped up a digital divide survey where we're trying to put our finger on that. I mean, we want to be inclusive in these strategies, and I'm hoping that, and me and the team are hoping that we get some idea of how we do that, because I think the other thing we have to recognize is it potentially looks differently depending on what those inputs are geographically, which we should be mindful of as we develop those solutions.
Now, ultimately, what we're going to want to do, I mean, if we find something that really works and we understand the psychology and the preference, what we want to do is then be able to take things that we explore in the innovation zones and take them to scale. I mean, the whole point is to try to give our city what I call thinking global and applying local. But it's a process to bring people forward. Again, we're hoping on CPS Energy's side that we can put some game concepts and some creativity around that brings in more interest in weighing into that, and more collaboration and more consideration. So that pilot piece is important. We have one pilot that we're working on though now that is a little bit different. It's one that we're going to try and maybe even take it in the innovation zones and kind of test it. You want to talk about the street light?
Yeah, let me talk about the street lights, but before I do that, I'm curious. I mean, you just talked about gamifying. I'm curious how many people have the City Flag 311 app downloaded on their phone.
I see.
If you're a city employee, don't raise your hand. Everybody else? All right. How many people from San Antonio do we have in here? All right. Pull out your phones.
Oh.
Don't pay attention to me for the next couple of minutes. Download, search on your app store, City Flag. It's our 311 system.
What's it called?
City Flag.
City Flag.
City Flag.
All one word or?
All one word.
Okay.
It's a red icon with a blue flag. It's how you can submit service requests to the city by the app, and you get points. Every time you submit one, you get a certain number of points. It tracks, the app tracks that and notifies you when it's resolved. So you get progress updates. So if you see a pothole or graffiti or broken sidewalk or what have you, a scooter blocking the sidewalk, you can take a picture of it if you want or not, but you can submit it. But that's part of gamifying and making it interesting for people to be involved. I mean, it's another version of the piano right there. Right?
What do the points do?
So,
Woohoo!
What do the points do? We're still working on that. You can go to lunch with the mayor.
That's good.
The mayor had.
That's good.
The mayor and I had on the 1 year anniversary. We brought the top 10 individuals into a press conference and celebrated that they had been engaged in their community. Now, to my shock and surprise, the mayor of Castle Hills was like number 3 on our list.
Wow.
So he was engaged. His business is in San Antonio, but so we're thinking through what the prizes are for next year. But
now, one more time, is Matt still here? Is he gone? Okay, so he can't grade my paper if I tell the story wrong. So just to add in, so we have something simple CPS Energy does for our customers. Now that we have the digital meters, we can give people feedback about how they're using energy, and that coupled with our demand response thermostat program and our notification program tells people if you want to save money today or to help the community, please work with your thermostat. turn it up in the summer and turn it down in the winter, so you're not using power unnecessarily. And you can still stay comfortable, because like here, this is not cool or cold, it's comfortable. And so we created this thing, and I was telling him about it, and I said, here's what I love about our gamification. I said, this is interesting to me because we have people, we have what I would say young people and students walk up and they like it because there's an element where we will tell you how you performed and how you use energy and whether or not you were the best saver of energy in your neighborhood. So they like it because people are competitive in a good way. I've had seniors in retirement walk up and tell me they want to beat their neighbors. Now, it causes some problems in the house because usually it's either the husband or the wife, and so they're irritating each other with, I've got to play this game and win. But I was saying, how neat is it that we have a very simple gamification? And so Matt said to me, because he's a game expert, he goes, you're not doing gamification. You're playing a game. Gamification is when you do have to create incentives and you have to keep upping the incentive. Yeah. Now, you're not giving money away at the current time, so I think you're safe.
We're safe.
Yeah, I think you're safe. I think you can manage this.
We're not doing that.
You're not doing that, so I think you're good. But ours is just playing a game, and it's organic. And again, enticing people to take the steps or enticing people to throw things away and enticing people to think about conserving energy where they don't have to do a whole lot to compete. They don't have to walk up the door. They don't have to show the bill or anything. They know how well they're doing, and we keep having to do that. So there are a lot of things that we're going to pull Matt in to see if he can help us think about this all the way through. He just doesn't know that he can't break up with me now. So do you want to talk about the street lights?
So the great example, and I think we are nearly next month ready to start rolling this out, but as the teams have worked together through the CPS procurement model, I mean, it's made it I think simpler from a standpoint where we're working together through one procurement model to figure out what's on that street light and the type of sensors and the type of data that we'll collect and what it looks like. Who owns the data is a big issue. What are we going to do with the data? What are we going to track? But it's a really simple example of us working together under your procurement model, not mine or anybody else's, to get to an endpoint. And the endpoint is important. And I wanted to figure out a way to add this in here somewhere. At my level or at your level, it's important to get it done.
Yep.
I got enough meetings to go to, and we all have great teams, and a lot of them are in here right now. But it's important to keep moving forward. And that's one of the things that, every once in a while when I'm driving home at night.
He'll give me a call.
Or I pinch myself, because I do it to myself. Get it done.
Yeah.
It's all right. It may fail. We'll back the car out of the garage, straighten the car, back it back in. It's not that difficult. And I think making sure that we inspire each other, that we give our teams the flexibility to move forward and understand that the car may be a little crooked in the garage. We'll straighten it out. Don't worry. But get it done.
So I will take this one because in a lot of cases, as much as I talk about we're moving forward and the flexible path and all the things we're doing, we have a lot of challenges when we do partner. And in particular, there's two things. One in particular has been data sharing. Out of all the things that we're doing, the richness of everything, one of the most important value perspectives, pillars or views, no matter where you're at, is the data. And we understand that. And we understand the more data that we can ultimately put out there, coupled with city data, coupled with transportation data, the more valuable the community will be. We have a general hurdle that we're having to deal with. We have right to privacy issues that we have to manage. And what we need is more people to opt in to our programs instead of assuming everybody's opted in and has to opt out. And that is one thing that we have held up the city in some way, maybe every way from a perspective. And I feel, though, like Erik, we've got to find a way to move this along and find the way to find opportunities to move forward. And really, if the issue is, what are the conditions that we need to say yes? The answer is yes.
Right.
But what conditions do we need to protect us and our owner to make sure that we're doing the right thing and that people don't feel like they were forced, but that they opted in and they chose to participate very broadly? That's a big deal. That's almost up there with telling people what to drive, right? We want everybody to move to EVs. Ultimately, we see that. But when they do it and how they do it depends on a lot of stuff. But data, people can be very particular about how we share their data. Now, like Erik, I go to we park in the car, I have an electric vehicle. It's an interesting ride. I'm a big fan. I just don't have a lot of mileage. I don't have a Tesla, but I've got one. So as I'm pulling in the evening and thinking about it, I'm thinking about the same thing he's thinking about. How do we say yes, and how do we move forward, and how do we empower? So the big thing I'm talking to my team about is, what are our conditions of yes, and how do we make sure that we explain it, and how do we start? We've got to make progress. I agree with you.
Right.
The other thing that we're trying to think about is fiber. Fiber's tough because we own some critical fiber in the area. We need to make additional investments in fiber. We can't be in the telephone and communication business based upon how we were constructed as a municipal entity. Our owner can leverage our assets, but we have to be careful about how we share that and make sure that they're in a good space. And the last piece is we have to make sure there's enough fiber to still carry on the electric and gas systems. That's a big complication. We can't give all our fiber capacity away, and we have to control the asset. In other words, people can't go working on our fiber, because if they do something and cut the connection, what'll happen is they're trying to add more internet service, but we will actually potentially have problems providing energy services. So that's still a thing that we have to master. That's a thing that we have to say, how do we say yes? And we've got to have work sessions. So Erik and I now, my people are in the audience cringing because now Erik and I are partnered to say yes, and we are going to be driving our teams to do that. So
We have to.
we have to.
We have to.
We're doing really good on time, and I'm going to make sure that we stay good on time. But I think we hit a lot of the major parts. But I do want to ask you a question that kind of tailors in on where your predecessor, Shirl, left. Mm-hmm. I asked her last year, what advice do you have for us? Shirl had been in the city management business for over 40 years, is
Yep.
that correct?
Yep.
Well-known, an icon in city industry, and a wealth of knowledge, poise, and perspective. And Erik and I both think fondly about her. And she still lives in San Antonio doing the good work, working on boards and just being a wonderful citizen. So I asked her, though, what advice do you have to Erik and me, I think indirectly, and what to watch out for? Now, her answer was something like, be careful that you don't only focus on the technology. Don't get wrapped up in that. Remember the bigger, broader picture. Remember the bigger issues of the city. Think more about how do you get things done. Don't just think this is a sole technology play. Okay, so she hands the baton to you, and you're running. So what's in your head? What are, other than or in addition to this having to get over the humps? What are you focused on now that you've been in a whole wonderful year, and you see that we have some things that we can accomplish 2020 forward?
That's a great question.
I didn't tell I was going to frame it so much. So
It hasn't been my focus, right? And it doesn't need to be, because we've got a great team at the city. It's making sure that they've got the support and the guidance, and we're connecting where we need to connect at our level to keep it moving forward. My focus in this last 12 months has been transitioning into a $2.7 billion entity, corporation, with 12,500 employees, and connecting with them. And there were a number of issues or items that were on my list, and I suspect a lot on the council's list that needed to get checked and moved on. So in the middle of that, we had a legislative session that made some changes to how municipalities and government and county governments in this state raise revenue. So there was a little bit of a speed hump thrown in. But I've tried to be very visible within our organization. You talked a lot about, and you have a lot of employees in here, and you thank them for the privilege of being their CEO. I feel the same way with our 12,500 employees. And it's important to make time to tell them and for me to be out there. It's important for me to do that all the time. Yeah. We've got a great council that has identified a number of big issues that they want to tackle this year, and transportation being one of them, being the primary one. So we're focused on making sure the mayor and the council hit their goals. We've got a pre-K for SA item that'll be on the ballot. So it's making sure the council's focused on their goals this year. This stuff that we talk about up here, I don't worry about because there aren't handcuffs. You have a good team. We all have good teams. We're focused on doing something differently. So it's not like either one of us have the roadmap of what it's supposed to look like.
Not at all.
That's not the case on practically everything else I do. So it's a little freer. Now, not that free, Brian Dillard. It's not that free.
All right, Brian, I tried.
It's a little freer for me. It's not freer for you. But it makes it easier. Yeah. And we can kind of think through that. I do want to ask, and we've got a number of folks here from the city. I do want to ask you to stand. It's a small group, and you'll hear from some of them over the next day and a half.
Where are you?
But we're doing really great things with our Research and Development League. With our Research and Development League that we shared with council a week and a half ago. Cool things like City Hall on the go. And looking at how cities like Boston and DC have research and developed services. We're looking at adding sensors to our garbage trucks because they're driving on every city street at least twice a week to gather infrastructure data about that street. We've got great partnerships with USAA, UTSA, and Southwest Research Institute on that research and development. And I think that's probably the next beach we're going to be hitting, right? We've been talking about smart cities, and we're at 3.0 at this point. Research and development and taking what other cities are doing and figuring out what works for us is kind of the next beach we're going to be hitting. And I really want to thank the city team for their creativity, and they had a great presentation at council last week, 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. Well, look, I couldn't agree with Erik more. It's interesting, again, it depends, and connecting people and making relationships and optimizing is one of the biggest things that we have to do. He mentioned Southwest Research Institute, UTSA. I'd also add,
USAA.
USAA is our customer, but we have had technology competitions together, and we continue to look for opportunities for that. I'd also say the military. Military City USA is one of our main mantras and our passion for our military. They're on a mission. We're on a mission with them. So the perspective, if the city can partner from a perspective of what they're doing, and we can partner from our ability to talk about making the grid more resilient and secure, and microgrids, and using technology and sensors to make the community better, this is what it's all about, and being organic, and again, saying yes and finding the conditions of yes. So all that said, we are out of time. Actually, we did excellent on our time frame. I want to, if you could all help me thank Erik for being here this morning, and thank you. So we're done.